Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some, and peace out to the rest of you. You know who it is and who it ain't. Let me skip all that. Hit the share button. You know why. Let me get right to it. We can sit up and say that we don't have to forgive Biden and his party for what they promoted. And I realize the voting polls have closed. The election's over. Now it's just a question of counting. I understand that. But we still have to understand this because there are going to be other elections coming up. There'll be congressional elections in 2 years. There will be local elections whenever your county or city chooses that they will be there. State elections, if they were not already set by your states to coincide with the presidential election. So I want y'all to keep this in mind. That keep in mind what I'm about to say, even for the next upcoming elections and for the future. When Maxine Waters says that she won't forgive black men, my first thought was, how the F do you forgive the ones who locked us up? There may be a valid reason. I mean, granted, see, let's say that you're one of those community members that was behind the crime bill because you were so sick and tired of seeing the aggressors in the community just walk around and get away with it. So you were for a crime bill, unaware that something had been slipped in so that a bunch of nonviolent black men would also wind up behind bars because they decided they were sick of being poor. Right? Okay. So now we think about this.
I don't mind, but I don't know. ما حتجاوب يعني.
Okay.
Okay, مين حيدفع انت بالعافية؟
Maybe you're one of them. You might forgive Biden because you supported him. You may say, well, I was behind these folks so much that they thought they were doing what we were asking. If you really think that. But let's say you're like Sister Waters, Aunt Maxine. And I do admire how she stands up to conservative white men. Don't get it twisted. I do admire about her. But by the same token, that when you stand up to them, one of the ways you stand up to them is you assert black people's rights before anybody else's, unless they're also black. So if you're going to count black Latinos in with black Americans when it comes to certain things, maybe that's right, as long as they return the favor. It really depends on which ones they are and who they are. But when you start just throwing in all of that community and saying, I want this for them, and you throw Negroes to the side, no, that ain't cool. That's something that's also unforgivable, especially considering that in California, it's mostly Mexicans and they don't like black folks and don't even count us as equal in many cases. Many do, many don't. But there are too many of them that don't for us to say, oh, well, we can work something out. No. The only thing we could work out is maybe a mutual defense, and I wouldn't trust them with that because there's still too much of that white worship in their community. Sharp that fit. Anyway, I also want y'all to keep in mind this. Look, if you're going to not forgive black men, then how do you forgive Biden when you voted against Biden in the first place? So he knew he was not doing what you asked. How do you do that? Mind you, she voted against the crime bill. This was a time she voted in our interest. But she won't forgive us. Okay, then how do you forgive Biden? Now, I want to say something else to many of us that have gone from conservative to outright Republican, as if that's any better. If you're not going to forgive Biden, explain your stance, because you won't forgive Biden for voting for a crime bill because of the black men that locked up, even the ones that were not even violent offenders, and locking them up because they decided not to be poor. But you talk the same points as those who would have been in favor of the way that the crime bill was being implemented once it was implemented. See, if the white Democrats were selling us out, then to whom were they selling us out at the time? They were selling us out to the ones to whom you're now running, talking this Republican stuff, and I'm all with Trump and everything else. Let me tell you something. There are Nigerians that are for Trump. You know who they are? I'm going to tell you who they are. This was told to me by a Nigerian himself. The Nigerians that support Trump and want him to win again also support Israel. They are the Southeastern Lagos metro area Igbos, the ones I've been telling you talk all that junk, talk all that smack, and they go abroad and cause the rest of Africa to hate them too, to hate their whole nationality, even though it's not the nationality that's the problem. Yeah, the Igbos, specifically from the Lagos metro area, or Igbo land, yeah, them. That's why I search for Uhuru has a good time back in Nigeria. He's not hanging out with them, he's with the Yorubas. The Yorubas could go either way. But Igbo, for the most part, they got that trash-talking culture. They're the ones that will make you hate their nationality because they'll talk and they'll say, well, this is how we do in Nigeria. No, nigga, that's how you Igbo niggas from Lagos do it. You can even go to some remote Igbo villages and they don't act like that. You see what I'm getting at? So explain the stance. To whom did they sell us out? Other white Democrats? No, they sold us out to the white conservative Republicans who wanted to lock us all up. Because understand, even after it was implemented, your regular average run-of-the-mill white Democrat on the ground that's not professionally involved in politics was not really that happy about us being locked up once they knew what was going on. Now, there were those that didn't know, but when the average regular run-of-the-mill white Democrat liberal now was not happy to see us locked up and targeted for that too. Do you get where I'm going with this? If you won't forgive us for voting for Trump, I get it. Okay, maybe. Depends on who you are. But if you're going to forgive Biden, then how the hell are you going to forgive these white Republicans? See, once again, no matter where it is, we get the blame. She didn't say, I'm not going to forgive Trump. Remember, Trump never apologized for saying that the Central Park Five should be dead. He never apologized for that. And some of these pardons and exonerations for which many black men who were innocent walked out of prison didn't really have much to do with him. His office was not heavily involved in that. A lot of these were state and local cases anyway. I want y'all to understand that. You see, the funding of HBCUs for the next 10 years. One moment. Anyway, sorry, the funding of the HBCUs for the next 10 years. I want y'all to understand, it may have been the change. So maybe he extended the funding to 10 years. And that, I would say, that is a good thing. And especially if it was only for HBCUs, that's a good thing. What are the conditions that came with it, though? What do the HBCUs have to give? And this is a question that must be asked, just to be fair. What did HBCUs have to give up? I don't know what it is, but we have to talk about it. It may not have been much, but I would like for someone to fill me in. See, I'm only asking the questions to which I don't know the answers because I know that these are the questions, these are the answers that we need before we make these conclusions that we've been making, and most of us don't know these answers either. And if you don't know, it's fine, but that means you don't jump to conclusions that are not supported. That's all. Just like Brandy Kofi jumping on me when she says, well, I don't hear you addressing this, that, and the other. Well, Brandy, look, my recordings are long. Maybe you're busy. You don't have time to listen to the whole thing, but if you don't, that's fine. Just admit it to yourself first. I'm too busy to listen to all of this. I really can't comment on what he did not say because I didn't hear all of what he did say. It's the same thing here. If we're going to say that Trump did a lot for us, we need to start saying what some of these things are and make that as publicly known as the opinion that he did a lot for us. But what I can tell you is that Trump has not really changed his stance for the most part. Now, he may be more of a separatist. That may be true. He may not be as bad as what Biden would do. I don't know. What I do know is that when we go and run to his party, remember, you don't let him impress you into his party because his party is not uniformly impressed with him. Remember, he was so out there when he started that he was abandoned by much of his own party. Same thing happened with Bush 20 years ago. Don't forget that. I mean, neither one of them started off really cut out for the job. Granted, nobody really does. You can only get 2 terms. You don't get to become an expert at being the president. But what I can say is that he is among one of 2 Republican candidates in recent history that was so unprepared for this. So unprepared. So, I'm going to tell y'all straight. There's a representative from San Antonio, or there was. She was also representative at the time that Baby Bush was governor of Texas at that point. Remember, he loved to execute black men. Now, granted, the charge was murder. The convictions were murder. If you can prove someone committed a murder, chop their feather-mucking head clean off. I get that. But when in doubtful cases, he was ready to go ahead and sign them death warrants because they were niggers and they were convicted of murder. Screw the evidence in their favor. That was Bush. You see, Nobody, and he was so incompetent. I mean, a dude, by the time 9/11 happened, remember, he had about 9 months. He had 90 days of vacation racked up already in 9 months in office. Remember that. It was 9 days short of 9 months, because he was sworn in on the 20th, I believe, of January. Well, remember 9/11 happened on the 11th, so that means that there were 9 more days left to 9 months, but he had 90 days of vacation already racked up that he had taken. Stop and think about that. Incompetent. That actually, to tell the truth, that tragedy saved his career. We were smarter back then. We didn't let anybody whose own party members would leave them and abandon them and press us into that party. Now we're looking at someone like Trump. Y'all don't think y'all get it. Trump is not even liked by many of the Republicans that much. I mean, professional politicians. Now, your regular rank and file white conservative who believes in pulling yourself up by the bootstraps while they get public assistance and then talks down on Negroes for getting welfare loves him. Yeah, sure. Because he represents good old white America. Despite the fact that he doesn't even come from the same background as them, he still represents that because they all entertain hope that they can become as privileged as him. Failing to understand that his privileged position really actually does give him a different outlook on life, because they don't think it's okay for them to walk around grabbing punanis, but they like the fact that he says, grab him by the punani. And he admitted this. So, you see, we have to stop and think and remember that there is no reason to be impressed by him into the political party that he claims. If you're going to vote for him, make it very clear that you're voting for a specific reason, something he may or may not offer that you are sure Biden will not offer or cannot offer. Don't use age as an excuse to not vote for Biden and then as an excuse to vote for Trump. They're both old. The problem is we still got old white men. And I'll tell you now, I'm not really a supporter or fan of Obama, because to me there's no candidate that's black enough. But what I will say is this. Obama did have more class. There were certain things Obama knew not to do and say. He had more sense. Oh, yeah. He had more sense. So, he would not have said something about grabbing him by the punani. Some of y'all want to say, well, that's because he just doesn't like punani. Well, what evidence is there of that? Remember, Donald Trump did not call into question Obama's legitimate citizenship and birth in the United States because he doubted that Obama was born in the U.S. He did it because Obama was black. He was the leader of that. And let's not make any bones about it. They did not call this into question for any reason other than that he was black, because Hawaii was a state, not even a territory, but a state of the United States at the time that Obama was born in it. But even then, even if I'm wrong about that, and I might be, even if I'm wrong about that, you have to by law be born in the United States. You don't necessarily have to be born in a state and not a territory. So if you're born in Puerto Rico, even though the people living on the island can't vote for you into the Oval Office, you can still be eligible to run for the presidency, last I heard. But Trump was trying to bend things into what they weren't because he wasn't ready to see a black president. Did he ever apologize for that? Why should we forgive him for that? I'm not a supporter of either one of them, but the fact is Obama did not need and deserve to go through anything extra on account of his race. You want to talk about a policy of his? That's fine, as long as you go after everybody for the same policy. My issue with him is very different from many others. He bombed more Muslims and even more Africans with drones than Bush did. By the same token, the technology was more available to him during his time in office. So I still have to be fair about that. My issue is, simply put, you don't touch Muslims. You leave them the hell alone. You don't touch black people. You leave them the hell alone. You don't help other people to go against Muslims or to go against black people. That's my issue. When Amir Junaid Muhaddith, formerly known as Loon, the bad boy, was locked up, this was under Obama's administration. I want to look at Obama and say, why did you not pardon him from those charges? Because you know they were bogus. But see, those are my issues with him. These are meat and potatoes, solid issues. Many of us are overlooking all of these things and saying, Trump, 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 Trump. Are you niggas crazy? If you're going to vote for him, make sure it is a strategic reason and go ahead and tell others about this. But understand this, though. We are still going to be in the position that we are in until somebody that is in power realizes that we have power to affect them negatively or positively, in exchange for which they will go ahead and grant us something we want. I've been saying for the longest, getting the out of America and Canada and the UK are going to be better options for us. I've been saying that. And we still don't want to look at repatriation. You all are arguing over which master to run the plantation because you don't want to talk about even so much as buying your freedom. And it's easier to escape the plantation now than it was during actual literal bondage. And we don't even want to talk about that. America's the greatest thing. No, the F it's not. Its greatness comes from us, what we've done, with and without the help of our women. It's come from that. We've had Harriet Tubman as an example. We also had her saying, don't you give these niggas the vote if you ain't gonna give us the vote. But she had nothing to say when white men could vote and white women couldn't vote. So she was also she was human as the rest of us, yet she performed a deed that is still unsurpassed to this day that I know of. She said she could have freed 1,000 more if they had known that they were slaves. I mean, that's what she is attributed to have said. I've never seen the proof that she did or did not say that. But what I do know is that she freed plenty. She freed large numbers. She spied on the Confederates for the Union and helped to bring down the Confederates. That is very true. And yet and still, she had that programming in her. Our greatness is America's greatness. We leave, she ain't got it no more. She's going to have to find it from some other people. And I'm going to tell y'all now, she can't get the same thing from the Latin Americans for one reason. People don't know this, but I'm going to tell you the best kept secret about Latin American immigration into the United States. When they get what they're looking for and they're comfortable, they go back home. Y'all didn't know that. Take a trip to Cancun and look how many English-speaking tour guides you meet. Most of them are Chicano. Their parents left Mexico, went to the U.S., or their grandparents did. They said, okay, I'm fluent in both languages. I'm going to do well in Mexico. I don't need a degree. I need to be bilingual. And I am. And they go into Mexico, and they do better than other Mexicans, and they save more money. Some of them learn how to fix a wide range of cars while working in the States. They go back into Mexico, or even other Latin American nations now, but mostly Mexico. Yeah, Mexico for almost a decade at this point has had a net positive migration coming from the States into it, meaning there have been more people going into Mexico from the States than there have been going from Mexico into the U.S. for about 10 years off and on. We don't even know what the hell we're talking about half the time. That's where we're not so great. Raw talent, but we still have not developed the intellect. Even in this manosphere, conscious and aware space. And that's why we're sitting up here talking about a Blaxit and getting that wrong. Does it mean you, Blaxit means you are black exiting. It does not mean you were entering. Doesn't mean you're going Republican. And there are many of us that are saying black male independence, great, but let's not get that confused with black male republicanism. Black male conservatism is not to be confused with black male republicanism. I've said, and I hold to this. Black male conservatism is a necessity. Black male republicanism is going to do us in if we ain't careful. Because neither one of them really wants us to go free and have the possibility of owning them one day. And they know both of them deserve to be owned by us. You sit up here arguing over whether you're going to let the wolf or the fox bite you first. I'll tell you what. Fox can trip me, but his jaws ain't as strong. The wolf is out in the open, but when he gets a hold of a limb, he could rip it off if he weighs enough. How about neither one? How about that? I hope that this message one day will no longer be necessary, but in the meantime, I hope it helps. Black heart, black mind, black in, black out. Assalamu alaikum.